Today I'm going to be installing the Alta Performance Turbo Exhaust Delete Pipe for the R56 Mini Cooper. This is a $129 product. It's shipped ground for about $19, so I'm at about $150 all in, and it came in about 3 days, so pretty good turnaround. The R56, which is the 2007 Plus Mini Cooper, has a muffler to kind of lower the sound of the turbo, and as a result it doesn't have that throaty sound that you'd expect out of a turbo, but it's also being robbed of a bit of power because when it passes through the baffle, you're losing some of the air volume, plus you are adding resistance because it has to pass through that, along with turbulence. So Alta makes this performance delete pipe that goes on the quote-unquote hot side of the turbo in order to delete that muffler. Now, since it's just a piece of silicone pipe, I very much considered making one myself. I mean, it's just a 90-degree angle and a 90-degree angle and some bit of straight. It's this curvy kidney kind of shaped bit that I decided was enough of a nuisance that I was not going to try and save maybe $30 in making my own. This is a $129 item. Buying all of the individual parts, you'd probably be at about $75, and then you need to wrap it in order to make it, stay together. So getting as a kit pre-measured made a lot more sense. The first step of actually getting this thing ready to be installed is putting it on the ramps, popping the hood, and walking away for probably about an hour, depending on how long it's been since the last time you drove your car. I had just run this thing out to get a couple of supplies to do this shoot, and the heat coming off of the turbo is pretty hot, and in fact, because of the way I drive, when I pulled in, the turbo was still slightly red. So I wouldn't recommend actually, just pulling this thing up and doing it. Rather than putting it on a jack stand, it's on a set of Rhino ramps. I'll put a link in the description to the Rhino ramps. They're great, they're plastic, they're rated for 1,200 pounds. The Mini Cooper, you're only going to have like half the weight, so no big deal, 1,200 pounds will do you. For an extra $10, you can get the ones that are rated for 1,700 pounds. So, great deal, and we'll be doing this install shortly. But first we gotta let the engine cool. This is the grungy underhood, of my Mini Cooper. And under bonnet, I guess, is the appropriate way to say it since it's a Mini Cooper. But basically, this is the turbo. This is the turbo intake, and if you've watched the video previously, I have upgraded the cold air intake to that massive one over there from Spectre, and the air comes in, is circulated, and goes out through this hot side exhaust. Well, you can't see it from this shot, and probably until I've taken it apart, you won't be able to see it. There is a muffler in there, and that muffler acts as a baffle in order to cut some of the noise and some of the turbo sound. That also introduces turbo lag and reduces the amount of air that passes through it. So basically that bit lives right here, because how this would work is this bit is going to be where that bit is. And rather than being the right side up the upside down orientation, it will end up like this. And so down here is where the muffler is. And this curvy bit is the reason that I didn't make one of these myself, is I didn't want to have to try and figure out whether that was close enough to a 45 that I could have used a 45 across it. And there's a size change in there too. So I went with the pre-manufactured one. But we're basically going to undo a hose clamp here. We're going to move the reservoir temporarily so that we have better access to the stuff. And then from the bottom, we're going to undo another hose clamp and undo the screw that holds in the muffler. But again, we're waiting for the turbo to cool because, as you can see, it says do not touch. That's because this is still flaming hot at the moment after about 25 minutes of sitting. So we're going to remove the reservoir for the cooling system. So we're under the Mini Cooper, and this is the quote-unquote hard bit, is that bolt, or that hose clamp rather, has to be accessed through that hole in the frame, and the air dam gets in the way. So I'm using, I don't know whether you can see this, hopefully. I couldn't get a good view of this even without the camera, but with the camera it was basically impossible. But this piece sits down in there attached to the wall, the firewall. I guess it's not the firewall because it's the front of the car. Whatever it's attached to, and it is an absolute pain to get out. And it's a little Torx sized screw that holds it in. So instead what I did, and this is not what the directions say, the directions say you're supposed to undo that screw. I undid the two pipes from the two sides of the muffler, and I twisted it and I rocked it back and forth until it broke off, which didn't take that much pressure. So that's probably not the right way to do it, but it's what I'm doing because it works. And this honking thing drops nicely in the hole. I actually dropped a little too far into the hole. And we'll just attach right there. And so that's the next step, is putting the tube on. So the muffler part, it's easier just to break off. Probably if I'd been thinking I should have just used a hacksaw, but you're never going to put that piece back on, so just commit that you're going to do this the right way the first time and do it that way. So we're going to finish the install by pushing in the tubing and putting on the clamp. And we've already done that at the bottom, but the top one fits a little tighter. We're going to hose clamp that down, and now that's good and tight. And then we're going to replace the screw that we took out for the reservoir, which hopefully you have not lost. And it sits on, you probably can't see it in there, but there's two little clip things in there that it sits on. And it appears that the Alta Performance has changed the positioning just a smidge, so it doesn't just rock into place the way it did previously. There we go. It's a real snug fit right there. Okay, so this is the finished install. Everything's back in place. You can see the shiny plastic, and we'll start her up. So I've taken the car for a spin now and can say that I don't hear a difference in the sound. It definitely pulls harder. And I would not say it's smoother, I guess is the phrase I'm looking for. Before, there were spots in the RPM curve where you could feel that it had more torque. And it seems like I have more even torque throughout the curve. Previously, at between 4,000 and 5,000 RPMs, there was this bit of a burst where you could feel that the turbo was kicking in. And then as it got to about 5,200 RPMs to 6,200 RPMs, you didn't have as much pull. And now it feels like from about 2,200 to 6,200 RPMs, I have very even, or at least nicely curved, torque. I'll actually get somebody to take it out to the dyno to see what it actually does. I don't have a good comparison to run against without the muffler removed, but it definitely feels nicer. Again, I don't think I could hear the difference in the sound, so I don't really know why Mini Cooper included it, because sound-wise, it doesn't seem like it did a whole lot. Changing the air filter made a much bigger difference in the sound of the car than deleting the turbo exhaust muffler. Economy-wise, I didn't drive that far, but it looks like I'm getting better economy as a result of this, and that is kind of to be expected. If the car is breathing better, I should get more economy without having to make any other sacrifices in performance. So hopefully I'm going to get a couple of extra miles per gallon. Until I've run it for a while, I won't know for sure, but there's no reason to believe that that isn't the case. So I think I'm pretty happy with the upgrade. $150 all in, and had I hit the thing with a hacksaw or a Dremel, it would have been a 15-minute install. I spent the most time trying to get that torque screw out, and then I eventually gave up. So if I had just given up faster, this would have been a 15-minute install. And you'll see that from you see that from the video. If I didn't cut a whole lot out. There was some stuff under the car that I didn't show you just because it was hard to get a camera angle. But really it was just turning that screw to remove the pipe from the turbo intake, or the intercooler intake rather. And that was it. That was the only thing I had to do under there. And other than knowing that you had to do that at the funny angle, that was easy. And so yeah, definitely an easy install, definitely something you could do in your spare time. I did the whole thing basically with a screwdriver. A socket set. But if I had not tried to make some of those corners, I wouldn't have needed the socket set. I could have done the entire thing with a flathead screwdriver, which is pretty cool for the upgrade and the way it makes the car feel. So I'm pretty happy.